Dude, my dad's sleeping. He's probably like, what is going on? Oh my god. We're done. Oh yeah. She's gonna love this.